Should one of ones be graded? Now, most people in this market will tell you, no, don't bother. There's no reason to spend the time and money because there's only one of that card. And so if it gets a 10 or if it gets a 6 or if it gets a 2, it's still going to be the only one of that card. So why bother grading it? These people are wrong. And I'm going to show you why in this video and prove to you that one of ones do make sense to grade. So there's two real reasons to grade one of ones. The first one is value. So you can say all you want that a PSA 10 is not going to add any value to a one of one because it's the only one. I can tell you absolutely it will add value to one of one. And so I wanted to take you through a quick thought exercise to prove this to you. And so there's only one copy, so this is theoretical, of course, but let's pretend that we have the raw copy of that card. And then we have a PSA 10 copy of that exact same card, and they're side by side. And we walk up to 100 different collectors and investors in this market, and we say, which of these two cards do you want? You can have them for the exact same price, but you can only pick one. Which would you rather have? And I'll tell you what the results would be. 100 people out of 100 would take the PSA 10 copy of that card. Why would they not take the copy that's in the highest grade? And so what that means is if everyone is taking the same one, that means that that copy is more desirable. That inherently means that that has more value than the other copy. And so absolutely a PSA 10 will add value to a one of one. Now, even if it gets a 9, if it gets an 8, like that might not add a lot of value, but it's not going to hurt. And what it'll do is it'll add liquidity because it'll make it easier to actually sell that card. So a lot of times if there's a higher end card and it's ungraded after a number of months or a number of years since the product's release, the obvious question is, why isn't that card graded? There must be something wrong with it. And so even if it gets an 8 or a 9, as long as it's graded, you're answering the question of, is there something really wrong with this card? Not really, not if it's an 8 or a 9. And, it's fine grade. It's not going to add the same value like a 10 will necessarily, but it's going to make the card easier to move. Now, what if it gets an even lower grade? Well, fine, guess what? That's going to also make the card easier to sell. Because if you sell that raw card and it actually has the type of damage that would get it a PSA 6 grade, that means that you're going to have to describe all of those condition flaws in your listing. And who wants to do that? Not to mention your buyer may still be unhappy if it's got all these problems with it. So getting the card graded removes that condition uncertainty and it gets you and your buyer aligned before the transaction ever happens. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to all one of ones because there are a whole bunch of worthless one of ones out there. There are random printing plate, no name prospects, sticker autos from unlicensed products that there's no reason to grade those cards no matter what the grade would be. But once we start talking about cards that actually have some kind of market, that actually have some real value attached to them, that's where it starts to make a whole lot of sense to get them graded. You're going to solidify the condition. If it grades well, you're going to add value to it. And worst case scenario, if it does get a 6 or a 7, it's still the only one. So it's not going to sell too much differently than the raw card would anyway. So there's really not a whole lot of downside here. And if it does grade well, there's a whole lot of upside. So the next time someone tells you not to grade a one of one, go ahead and tell them that they're wrong and you can explain this logic to them.